Hey, welcome back to Chic on the Cheap. This week's project was actually a project that I came up with last year as a Christmas gift for my brother-in-law. He really wanted, I guess they're called bomber hats, but I always call them a logger hat because they look like lumberjack hats to me. And I couldn't find a pattern anywhere, so I finally had to kind of hodgepodge my own pattern together. And I wanted to share that pattern with you today because this hat is a really fun hat to make. It's great for a Christmas gift, or it's great just to have for yourself, for fall, for winter, and since I'm doing costumes for the next couple weeks, this is also a great hat to make for a costume if you wanted your little kid to be a lumberjack. So, just an idea. And the way that I make it, instead of going and buying a piece of fabric from the store, which you can do, you could also buy a men's large flannel shirt from Goodwill. I think their shirts are $3.99, somewhere around there, so you can buy a men's shirt made out of flannel and use that to cut the outer pieces of the hat, and that'll save you a little bit of money on fabric. Okay, so enough talking. Here's how I put the hat together. So this is a little bit of a sewing project, so stick with me and I'm going to take you step by step. So you get the pattern first off of my Facebook page and start by taking the two pieces that you cut on a fold and cut them out of the bottom part of the shirt that's folded up onto itself. So that's actually the back of the shirt that I'm cutting these out of that's been folded up to like the middle of the waist of the shirt. Next we cut out the half circle pieces from the rest of the back of the men's shirt, and then finally I cut out the little bib part of the hat out of the rest of the back. Then I went to the front of the shirt and I cut out these two little pieces, which will be our ear coverings. And then finally I cut out two long strips about 2 inches by 12 to 14 inches long, and these we will turn into our straps for the hat. So when you're all done cutting out your pattern pieces, here's what you should have. You'll have the long piece in the back, which will become the ear muffs, kind of, that will cover. The two little pieces, those will be the small ear muffs. The long pieces for the string, the half moon and the side pieces, and then the flat piece for the front. So here's how we put it all together. Start by, if you're going to line your hat with quilt batting, you want to start by sewing that quilt batting onto the inner parts of each piece. Next, we're going to do the string pieces. These will be the straps for the hat. Just fold each piece in half and sew it just like this along the short end and down one long end like this, but you're going to leave the bottom one open so that you can flip it inside out. Then you'll just flip that inside out and that will become your finished strap, which we will add into the hat later. And here's kind of what it looks like. You can see it has one finished in and one unfinished in, and we'll add that in later. So now we're going to take the two, they have a little bit of a curve to them, they're the two long pieces. You're going to put them right sides together just like this, and you're going to sew along the back curve, this one right here. You're going to sew one seam right along that curve right there. And when you do, they're going to look like this when you open them up. This is going to become the very top of your hat. Next, we're going to take that piece that we just sewed and open it up. That's what it looks like. Next, take those half circle pieces. These are going to become the sides of your hat. You should have two of these made out of the outer material. And by the way, we're putting together the outside of the hat first, and then we're going to put the inside of the hat together, and then sew the two pieces together. So take one of those half circles, line it up, and pin it to one side of the two pieces that you just sewed together. So it should look like this, and then you're just going to sew right along that edge where you pinned. See, the seam will look kind of like this. Once you have both sides attached, you're going to take the other half circle and sew it to the other side, and you should have a basic cap after you do that. Do the same thing to your inside pieces. Now you should have pieces that look just like the outer shapes that we just sewed together, but they're made of fleece and batting, so do the same thing to the inside pieces. Next, take your tiny ear flaps. These are going to be the ear flaps that are just for decoration. Put the right side of your fabric against the right side of your fur or faux fur or whatever you're using. Sew them together, leave the top open, and then flip them inside out just like this. And you're done with those. We will add them in later. Alright, now we're going to add that big ear flap to our outer cap part of the hat. So what you're going to do is line up the center piece of that ear flap, that long ear flap piece, with the back center seam of your cap. And once you do that, just pin it all around. Now we're going to take those little ear flaps that we made and we're going to pin those into our seam, just like you can kind of see here. I pinned it into the seam, and those should hit right about the middle of your half circle pieces. That way they'll be centered over the ear once we sew it and flip the hat out inside out. So you can kind of see, get an idea when you flip it inside out, this is what it's going to look like after you sew that seam. And as you can see, our hat's kind of starting to come together. So after we've done this part, now we're going to add in the top flap, and it's pretty simple. Just put it right sides together and then sew it on the inside so that it should look like this. Do the same thing to your inside pieces, the faux fur and the fleece lining pieces. You need to sew them together just like we did for the outer pieces. Now we're going to put the inside and outside pieces together, but before we do, go back and take those straps that you made, and what you're going to do is tuck the finished edge of your strap into the hat and leave that unfinished edge right on the outer edge of that the ear flap that we're going to sew together. So if you can kind of tell, what we're doing is pinning right sides together, the inner part of the hat and the outside part of the hat, and just make sure those straps are lined up and pinned in place. So here's kind of what it looks like. Kind of looks like a big mess, but you're going to sew starting at the back of the hat. Just sew all the way around those two pieces until they're connected, but make sure that you leave yourself a 2 to 3 inch section that is open and not sewn shut at the very back of the hat, because you're going to have to flip this whole hat inside out just like a bag. So see right there where I'm pointing, leave that open, because you need to come back and flip the hat inside out after you've sewed the two pieces together. So I've sewed the two pieces together, now I'm flipping the hat inside out, and voila, your finished hat. And this is what it'll look like. You can add some buttons or some Velcro in between that top flap bib and the actual cap if you want it to stay up a little bit better. It's up to you, however you want to do that. And then all you have to do is get a willing model, and in this case I had my little boy Charlie help me out, and I gave him a little lumberjack beard and lots of cookies and his daddy's cell phone, and he modeled for me for a little bit. So here's kind of what the hat looks like. This is an adult size hat. You can obviously pare the pattern down and turn it into a child's hat, but it's a lot of fun to make regardless. Now to make this project easier for you, I have created a pattern that you can print off, and it's on my Facebook page in my photos. I'll try to also have it on my home page, but if you look in my photos, I'm going to try to put them on there as JPEGs so you can print them off on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and cut them out and use them as a pattern to make your own hat. So hopefully that will be helpful. I know that would have been helpful to me when I was trying to make this hat last year, so hopefully it'll help you out. Alright, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you right back here next week.